I want to refer to the Rupture Trilogy, the 3 books that I've written, and how being ruptured in a way that changes your modus operandi. In other words, the normal way that you go about your life, the everyday routines, the habitual behaviour, the thoughts that continue to run on the same rail. So it seems like nothing ever changes. Unless you rupture that program that's in here, you're going to continue on through your life in exactly the same way. On a core basis, nothing will actually change much. Your outer circumstances may change, but your inner core of what you are and what you've cultivated to be what you are from when you're a very young child will stay much the same. And so if you are not ruptured, then your chances of not reincarnating are very slim indeed. So how do you get ruptured? There's many, many ways to get ruptured. Being consciously aware of your everyday life, and if you're not happy with it, innately happy. I'm not talking about the surface things that you may do to try and instill happiness on a surface level, but when those surface things stop, which are all distractionary, you go back to your core base and it's not a place you want to be. In other words, you have to have constant distraction all the time to feel something. That's an emotional hook. It's dopamine, it's norepinephrine, it is adrenaline, it's what keeps you running throughout the day and probably half the night. So you have to be ruptured in a way that those sort of activities, those distractions, those hits fall away. And part of that is realizing that the life that you're living is not really conducive to being able to grow and evolve your soul. Because that's what you're here for, the evolution of the soul. That's all you take back with you when this body drops, is that teardrop of type of etheric change, and that teardrop is poured into the cauldron of the mind of God as something that you did in a lifetime, and it may be just a teardrop for that whole lifetime. So how did I become ruptured? I kept on not complying. I was never in compliance with somebody else's agenda. I just wouldn't do it. Now, whether it was relationships, whether it was work, and work was something that was always what I was in control of. If I started some job and I was working for somebody else and I didn't like it, after a week, sometimes a day, I quit. After a month, I quit. I didn't give a stuff about the money or even my circumstances. I never had debts. And when you don't have debts, you have freedom. You have freedom to allow yourself ruptures. Ruptures where you're able to change your direction, that arrow of destiny that you put in place, you can change it. But if you're indebted, you're pretty much stuck. And then you've got to put up with shit you don't need to put up with. So what's the chance of rupturing when you've put yourself into a tie-down situation? Where is the room for rupture? You don't have any choice. You've closed them down. So ruptures can take many forms. For me, one of the major ruptures, and of course you get ruptured through, relationships. They may leave you or you leave them. Somebody betrays you, you betray them, although that I've never really betrayed anybody. But I've been betrayed a lot. And every time that betrayal, whether it was in business, whether it was being backstabbed by somebody else who you thought was a friend or an ally or somebody that you had some sort of connection with on a positive basis, all of these things, they hurt emotionally, but they also rupture a part of you where you're not going to be the same trusting person. You're not going to be the same naive person, and you're going to grow from that, and you're going to go in a different direction. You're going to be wiser, more wise about your actions and who is acting in a way that you don't need to be putting up with it. You walk away from it. But the biggest rupture for me was when I moved from Australia at the age of 41, and I was successful there. I had 3 naturopathic clinics, all did well. Took me 13 years to build everything up, and then I just threw it all away. I absolutely walked away from it. Why? Because I'd mastered what I wanted to master and been able to set those clinics up, did the study, which altogether took about 4 basic years and then another 2 years because I did clinical hypnosis and all that sort of stuff. So I walked away from it, and I walked off with not a lot of money and came to Thailand. That was the start of a rupture. And then, and I'm not advocating that people use all sorts of drugs, but I was introduced in those days in 1993, at the end of 93, to the drug ecstasy. And that was when ecstasy was in its pure form. It was made in a European country. I won't name the country, but the guy who actually invented ecstasy called it God's mirror. And for me, personally, that split me open. That absolutely changed my life. Because I was so frequency specific to that drug, that particular drug, that when I took that drug, I was no longer who I was before. No longer. The mask came off. All of the emotions that I'd built up over the years that didn't serve me, lack of self-confidence, didn't have a lot of will, all of these traits that were Greg Gordon melted away. They never came back either. And I took that stuff, I would say 5 days a week. In fact, and I didn't take one. Sometimes I'd take up to 6 of them a night and be out in nightclubs and discotheques and dancing all night on this stuff, because it wants you to move, it wants you to express yourself in dance or in whatever way, and usually in dance. That's where the whole rave movement come from, was all because of ecstasy. So it was a major rupture for me in Phuket, and that went on for about 4 years, chronic use of ecstasy. And so much so that my stomach couldn't take it anymore at those doses. So I had to stick it up my back passage, which actually gets absorbed better there. But that was a major, major rupture for me, the drug ecstasy. And again, I'm not advocating that anybody uses drugs to get ripped, because for some people, I've seen them melt down on ecstasy. It just didn't suit them. They had it, and then they sat and cried for 2 days after it. They couldn't handle it. But anyway, that was a major rupture for me. At the same time, I was also involved in the teachings of Rupture, which is the teachings of Gnostic knowledge, ancient knowledge. That ruptured everything I believed about the world. Whatever I believed about myself was between that and that drug and the teachings and Ramtha's school. And when I went to the school and was able to do things that, and without training, the average human being cannot do it. And I won't go into all of that, but you became, I wouldn't say almost supernatural. The experiences that I had, they were, because the average person without training can't do them. And so that was another thing that just showed me that we're not just this body. What lives inside us is always there, and yet it's cloaked by the mind, the body, mind, consciousness, agenda, the mind that operates within this system of social compliance and all of that stuff is not your friend. In fact, it keeps you separated from your greater self, which is the mind of God or the subconscious mind. And so you need to find your own way to rupture yourself, because if you don't want to die, you do not want to pass this plane of demonstration, it's called, this Hertzian plane, the first dimensional plane. And we have inside us, that operates within us, the infrared plane and the visible light plane, or bands. They form, the three of them, those bands that I've spoken about in this previous video, form the visible light spectrum. You want to be able to get your consciousness above that, because if you don't, you're going to be re-looped again, reincarnated into another body, and born just as stupid. And then you have to start all over again, just as naive, just as ignorant. You don't want that. You want to be able to grow, evolve your soul, evolve yourself out of what is out there in everyday life, and change. Look forward to change, embrace change, accept change, and just go for it. And if something's pissing you off, that you think you're just wasting your time in it, walk away. Fucking walk away from it. It doesn't matter the cost of it. The cost is all of this shit is going to fade away when you pass away. It's all gone. You can't take anything with you except what you've done to your soul. Now, the whole point is to rise up, raise your vibration, increase your frequency value, specifically to get out of this third dimensional trap, because it is a trap, but you can do it. But look for rupture, look for change, cultivate awareness of where you're at, and just do it. As they say, just fucking do it. If you have that in your mind, when you've got doubt, just do it. You'll move on, and you will rupture. You don't have to rupture the way you've got your own way to rupture. Just do it, okay? You'll thank yourself for it later on. Maybe come back to this video. Share this video. Share it. Like it. Share it. Because it's super important that you do these things, because you don't get another chance, you know. And the more you change and the earlier you start to change, the better, because you're building momentum, you're changing. That's the key. Bye for now.